Looking again at some of the aspects of this chapter from Wollstonecraft's Vindication, I think that her quoting from John Milton's Paradise Lost, the quotes that she chooses regarding Eve in the Adam and Eve story, are quite important, actually. Um, One of the things that we have to do when we read an old text, especially a text like I think like this, is try to recreate for ourselves to some degree in our imagination the situation that the author found themselves in. And so here, when we're reading something by someone who is exploring the role of women in her society, in essentially British society in the 1790s, late 18th century, and saying the kind of things that she does, to have a sense of what she is trying to overcome, to try to recreate the deep prejudices or the deep sexist attitudes that she is fighting against is something that we have to do. It's not as if sexism, misogyny, discrimination against women does not exist in our own society. I think it obviously does, but it's different. Whether it's worse, whether it's better than it was um, in the 18th century, that's something for all of us to decide. Which is to say that these attitudes from Milton are quite valuable for us because it's they're the ones that she chooses to embody the kind of attitudes towards women that she's fighting against. And here, this is a quote from Paradise Lost, which is a long epic poem about the fall of human beings, a Christian poem about the mission of Satan, the fallen rebel angel, to corrupt the first man and woman. This is Eve speaking to Adam, the first woman speaking to the first man. And this is what Milton has her say: "To whom thus Eve, with perfect beauty adorned," and that's to introduce the quote. So now it's Eve speaking, and she's speaking to Adam. "My author and disposer, what thou bidst unargued, I obey. So God ordains. God is thy law, thou mine. To know no more is woman's happiest knowledge and her praise." And we can, just by reading it, we get a general sense of what Milton is saying about man-woman relations. But if we look a little closer, Eve calls Adam her author and disposer. She's not talking to God; she's talking to another human being, Adam, as her author. The Milton takes it quite seriously, I think, the idea that that woman was created out of one of the ribs of man. My author and disposer, the one who basically created me, and my disposer, the one who rules over me. What thou bidst, whatever you want, whatever you say, unargued, I obey. And that speaks for itself. That is, that Eve is very explicit that Adam is her master, and that whatever he says, she will obey. That's her place. So God ordains, right? So that's very important to Milton, that man woman relations with the man in a superior position who basically has command over the woman is the will of God. So God ordains. This is, of course, Milton's interpretation of man woman relations and Milton's interpretation of the significance of the Bible story. But that goes without saying. It's his particular view, but it is emblematic and reflects, I think, general views that were widespread at the time, if not the majority of men felt this way. I don't know about women. Unargued I obey, so God ordains. God is thy law, thou mine. That is, it's almost as if, and it really is, if you look at the book, which I highly recommend. It's an incredible experience reading Paradise Lost for a lot of reasons. But if you read the book, you can see that Milton imagines the man, the male of the species, to be the medium to God of the woman. That is, the woman approaches God and the woman connects to God through the man because of the man's superior faculties. God is thou law. God is thy law. That is, truly God tells Adam what to do. But Adam tells Eve what to do. Thou, mine. To know no more is woman's happiest knowledge and her praise. That is, putting this limit that what's really important for women to know is that they need to depend on men, that they need to be led by men, that they need to be cared for, that they need to rely on men, not just physically or for their daily bread, but for everything, because the man has superior faculties to the woman. I think that that's the idea. So I think that that's important to let that sink in, that this is the kind of world. Now Milton wrote this poem in the 17th century, around 1660, and Wollstonecraft is writing in 1790. So history has a lot of things have happened in between, like the whole 18th century. But this is more or less the kind of attitude towards women and towards woman's place and the relation between woman and man that Wollstonecraft's trying to deal with. And I think that her response to this whole notion that the man is the author and disposer of the woman and that he is the law to the woman is what she says here a little later on, where she says, I love man as my fellow, but his scepter, and that would be the scepter is the metaphor for the kingly authority, but his scepter, real or usurped, extends not to me. That is her saying that she will not accept this Miltonian traditional idea that a woman has to, in an unargued, obey. That the woman is in a naturally inferior position to the man and needs to be led by the man. That the man has to make decisions for her because she can't make them herself, which is the Miltonian, I think, idea. But she says, "I love man as my fellow, as my equal." And I approach my relationship with men in the same way I approach my relationship with women. They are my equals. They are not my superiors who unargued I obey. They are my fellows with whom I can share friendship, but not that sort of hierarchical thing. So his scepter, his authority, real or usurped, and that goes back to the idea of tyranny, right? Tyranny as usurpation of power rather than legitimate power. But his scepter, real or usurped, extends not to me. Like she's having none of this, which is such a obviously big part of the general message of this book.